another little mini reaction video. So this is going to be a little late night reaction. I just kind of wanted to go ahead and react to this news that's kind of everywhere. So um apparently, and this is, well, I won't say it's alleged because it's like all over the internet. And I just finished watching one of my favorite channels. I think it's Midas Touch or The Midas Touch. But anyway, he has like amazing political content and stuff like that. So I was just watching his reaction to the news that Trump has invoked the Alien Enemies Act, and it's a really old act, goes back to like 17 something. And basically, so I'm not going to give you guys a whole history lesson, but before we go ahead and get into my reaction to that and what does that actually mean like in real time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. For my Purple Heart member gangs, you guys are gonna see this after I kind of re-upload it on YouTube once I'm off the live. So thank you guys for all of your support in advance. You guys are amazing. You guys are awesome. You guys always come through, and we appreciate you guys so much. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive into the reaction. So basically what this boils down to, I'm not going to give you guys a history lesson, especially if you already live in the United States, you already know all of this. But what it basically boils down to is that the Alien Enemy Act gives the president unlimited power, access to the military to do with as he sees fit in the name of national security, but up a notch. Basically, it gives him the power to declare anybody an enemy of the state. So that means you can be locked up, jailed, deported. So basically, this is coming about because he says they're going after the Venezuelan gang that has infiltrated the shelter system. I watched a ton of videos about this. It's a very notorious gang. I won't even try to pronounce the name. I'm pretty sure I won't get it right, but I'm sure you guys are aware of it. It's all over the news. So basically, by him doing that, he is able to declare them an enemy of the state, and he can round them up and have them deported. Now the fear is that they're gonna go after non-criminals. They're just gonna go after anyone who they deem to be an enemy of the state. This is not just affecting migrants or undocumented people or any of that. It's affecting anybody who the president deems an enemy of the state. And he can have you jailed. So that's like journalists, anybody who speaks out, anybody who's considered like a dissident. If this sounds very unfamiliar, it's because this is not something that we're used to in North America. We're used to a democracy. We're not used to an authoritarian government. And a lot of people will be shocked. A lot of people will not be used to this type of governing, especially for people like myself in our 40s and 30s and 50s and onward, who has grown up under democratic rule, and we're not used to this type of, authoritarian control. And that's what's going to happen. This is more than just, going after Jim Acosta from CNN and taking away his press badge. This is like having him thrown in jail, declared an enemy of the state, have him in there indefinitely. So that's the type of powers that come behind this type of act. And it's another layer on top of the national security thing. Anything the president decides to do under this act cannot be challenged in a court. It cannot be you. There is no democratic back and forth. There is no Senate. There is no Congress. There is no nobody. It's just the president has the complete power and authority to do as he sees fit. And that's pretty scary. If you live in a country where you're not allowed to speak out against the government, you can't speak your opinions, you can't critique, you can't do any of that because you risk being jailed. There's a lot of things that are taking place. The act is just the most recent. There's some other things such as, for those of you who don't know, I live in Canada, and the law is changing, affecting the snowbirds. So when I say snowbirds, these are the retirees, the people who live in the United States 6 months of the year, and they live in Canada the other 6 months. So now there's a change in the immigration laws. They're now required, if you're going to be in the United States for longer than, um, I believe it's 30 days. I want to say, no, no, it's longer than 6 months. You have to register. Basically, I don't want to give you guys incorrect information. You can check it out yourself. But there is a time frame. So after that, you have to register with the government. You have to register with immigration, fill out, you have to get like an electronic visa. It's something that you get at the port of entry, unless you don't have one. For instance, if you are a retiree but you're not a Canadian citizen, you just hold like permanent residency, that means you have another layer. You have to get a visa. You have to apply at the embassy here. You have to go to the American embassy. You have to apply. You have to have an interview. You have to pay for that. And it can be denied, no refund. So you may not even get to travel. If you are a Canadian citizen, you will be required to register with immigration once you enter the country, if you're going to be there for longer than a certain period of time. And a lot of people are upset about that. A lot of the retirees, there's like a huge snowbird population, especially down in Florida and Arizona. Obviously, they go for the weather. So this affects a lot of people, and they just see it as another slap in the face. Tariffs, registering as an alien visitor, all that type of stuff is mean to, like, make you feel less than. So there's that happening, and now we have this new thing that's not really affecting us over here, but more so it could affect you if you decide to travel to the United States. Suppose you're a Canadian reporter and you've been critical about the president on your broadcast on the news, and you decide to go over there in vacation, and they can snatch you up, lock you up, deem you an enemy of the state. There's no intervening, right? There's like complete authority behind that act. So those are just, a lot to think about if people really want to live in that type of society. Usually we hear this about countries overseas, you know what I mean? That live under, strict authoritarian rule. There is no dissent. There is no room for dissent. Absolutely not. That is squashed. And anybody who speaks out is thrown in prison, or worse. Is that something that we really want North America to become? Like, so many people are now saying like they don't even want to travel over there because next thing you know, you're detained. There was a lawyer on TV yesterday telling people like, this is an immigration lawyer who lives in Washington, and we know Washington DC has the border really close to British Columbia. So obviously a lot of people travel back and forth, and he's been getting a lot of calls, and he's been telling people he can't guarantee that if you don't comply you won't be locked up. Can you imagine? Like, these are like 70, 80-year-old people. Like, that would just look a hot mess all over the news, like throwing granny to the ground and slapping on the cuffs. Like, I mean, this is like ridiculous, like ridiculous. Having like elderly people have to jump through hoops and all this other stuff. Like, what are elderly people gonna do? What threat do they pose? Like, these are people, you know, in the later stages of their life, who some of them with medical conditions, they're going down there for the warm weather. They're spending a lot of money in the United States. They have property. A lot of people have property, beachfront property, this property. A lot of people, like I said, live there 6 months out of the year. So they have deep financial ties to the country. They spend a lot of money over there. All their retirement savings is going over there. And the Canadian dollar is not exactly on par with the American dollar. So they're losing money financially living over there, where they could live over here and double the money. So they're giving up a lot to be over there, and to be like just completely disrespected is just crazy to me. Like, why would you want to do something like that? Anyway, so now a lot of people are rethinking the whole situation. Should they sell their properties and move back home? A lot of people in the comments, the video I was watching was saying, like, people just need to pack it in and come on home. It's getting really kind of scary now, because these are things that are now going into law. It's not just, rhetoric. It's not just talking on Fox News and all this other stuff. Is actually, going into law, pen and paper law, and it could really affect you in real time. So a lot of people are now having to rethink, do they want to really, is it worth it, like, to take that trip, south of the border? Or should you look into other destinations like the Caribbean, Europe, Australia, other places that offer warm climate? And oh man, it's so scary. It's so scary. It's so scary to actually be witnessing a democracy under attack, and to just witnessing an end of time, like an end of a certain era. Like, sometimes when you're little, you hear your grandparents talk about like certain times that they went through, and you just can't grasp the enormity of it, how they must have felt in that time. And now we're sitting here in 2025, and everybody's looking at North America just completely, being um, restructured, would say. I'm not going to say destroyed. I'm going to say restructured in a way that's really kind of scary, because for so long, people look to North America to escape from these same type of regimes that are now taking place in the United States. Like, they're running away from that. And this was always like a safe haven for people looking to get away from that type of environment. And now there's nowhere to run to. That's crazy. It's really scary, actually, to think about it. And so we just hope and pray that so far with this particular act that was invoked, a judge has been able to kind of delay it. How much longer does anybody actually believe that, judges will be allowed to stand in the way of what is deemed as progress? In other countries, these people are jailed, tortured, executed, because they won't play ball, because they won't go along with what they're being told to do, because they choose to stand for truth and justice. So I don't know, every time I hear a judge overruling or dismissing or throwing out some of these changes that are trying to be implemented, I always think, like, how much longer will they be allowed to, you know, have the final say to some of these things before they're also removed, and there is zero checks and balances, and there's total authoritarian control over the media, over the justice system, the military, everything. And it's kind of scary. It's like watching one of these really bad Armageddon movies on Netflix, only it's not a movie, it's actually reality. And it's so scary. What's the most scariest part is that some people are so unaware of how it really is to live in that type of society, that they're actually championing for these changes. Like, they want the change, they want this control, not really understanding that once this starts, there is no stopping it. Like, there's control over this, then there's control over that, then they take control over this, then the next thing you know, you have zero control. Like, people are forgetting, that we have examples of places that we can look to in the world where there is like zero freedom, and the population is living in complete fear of the people who govern them, and how horrible that is, and how terrible it is that we felt watching this stuff on the news, or seeing it, or hearing about it from our ancestors or people who traveled from those places. It's like, it's crazy, but that's the world that we're living in. Unfortunately, everything seems to be in hindsight. Only if we knew. Meanwhile, there's always been people screaming the whole time, like, just nobody's listening, nobody's listening, unfortunately, until it's too late. So hopefully, God willing, the judges are able to continue to do their jobs, and everybody can try and see a way out of this mess. It's one thing when you're talking tariffs. There was also some talk about him instructing the military or whoever to come up with military plans to forcefully take over the Panama Canal. Like, really? That's where we're going? It's almost like, chomping at the bits for this war. I don't understand the need and the want for it. It's just terrible to think about. And hopefully that can be resolved, because this is just going up and up and up. There's nobody to say, hey, like, don't do that. Everybody around is like, yeah, let's do it. Let's invade. Let's take over the canal. Let's do this. Let's do that. It's just like, if it's not Panama, it's Canada. If it's not Canada, well, he's not talking about invading Mexico. If it's not Panama Canal, it's Greenland. If it's not Greenland, it's Canada. Like, it's just nonstop. It's nonstop. The news, it's everywhere. It's constant. People are just, news wary at this point. You can't even turn on the news without it just being front and center, day in, day out now for the last 2 to 3 weeks. It's just, it's a lot. It really is. And there doesn't seem to be any end in sight. Like, there's just no end in sight. So anyway, guys, I'm not going to ramble on. I just kind of wanted to give my reaction to the whole invoking of that act. And thank God the judge stepped in for now. And yeah, thank God. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below if you're aware of the act. I know it's a really old act from 17 something. I don't want to say the wrong date, but it's really old, dating back to the 17th. So, wow. I'm kind of speechless. I don't really know what to say. I'm going to wrap it up, though. I don't want to, go on and on. But thank you guys so much. Stay up and stay blessed. And we'll catch up with you guys in another video. Deuces.